22 years, 5 nominations, 0 wins. The most famous actor on the planet couldn't win that golden statue that total unknowns were grabbing on their first shot. Here's a guy who spent half his life crawling through frozen rivers, munching on raw liver, and diving so deep into characters that people straight up forgot they were watching a performance. Critics called him a genius. The box office called him a king. But one institution just wouldn't say his name. And the whole world watched as rejection turned into a curse, then a joke, then a full-blown cultural phenomenon that followed him longer than any role ever did. If that pattern had broken earlier, maybe things would have gone different. Maybe he wouldn't have pushed his body to the edge of death, music, out there in the Canadian wilderness. Maybe the memes wouldn't have blown up bigger than his actual filmography. Maybe that burning need to prove himself wouldn't have eaten up everything else. But here's the thing nobody really asks. What happens to a man who wins everything and still feels empty? Who saves rainforests but still flies private jets? Who dates the most beautiful women in the world but never lets any of them stay past their 25th birthday? Who builds a legacy on screen but nothing that lasts beyond it? How does a kid from the poorest streets of Hollywood end up the richest prisoner of his own fame? Why did the same industry that made him a god spend 2 whole decades refusing to give him the one thing he wanted the most? And when he finally got it, why did it feel like he'd won the battle but lost something way more valuable? Before we answer all that, we gotta go back. Back to the cracked sidewalks. Back to those 3 bus rides with his mom. Back to the moment a little kid made a promise that would either save him or destroy him. Because the Leonardo DiCaprio the world worships. That's just the role he's been playing for 50 years. The real story is the one he's been hiding behind the cameras the whole time. East Hollywood in the 1970s and 80s wasn't the shiny paradise tourists pictured. It was rough, straight up a war zone where dreams went to die, drug deals on every corner, prostitutes working the boulevard, sirens slicing through the night, and right in the middle of it all, a tiny apartment where Leonardo DiCaprio raised her son alone, grinding multiple jobs just to keep food on the table. Leonardo's childhood home sat near Hollywood Boulevard and Western Avenue, a place that sounded glamorous but was all grit and struggle. I remember getting jumped by kids who wanted my bike, he said years later. I remember seeing stuff no kid should ever see, things that made me realize how fragile safety really is. His mom became everything, both parents, shield and anchor in a storm that just wouldn't stop. She had fled Germany chasing opportunity, only to get stuck in a cycle of barely making rent, while her son watched her shoulders carry weight that would crush most people. She took Leo everywhere, 3 buses to auditions, walking miles when money got tight, sitting in waiting rooms full of other desperate families chasing that same crazy dream. My mom is my hero, Leonardo would say decades later. And everyone who knew them knew it wasn't some Hollywood line. It was real. It was survival. She gave up everything so he could maybe, just maybe, get something better. His father, George, though separated from Malene, stayed in his life, but from a distance. An artist living on society's edge, creating underground comics that barely paid. George opened his son's mind to art, to counterculture, to thinking outside the box. But he couldn't give stability. Their bond was loving but marked by absence, weekends instead of every day, good intentions that couldn't replace being there. School was another battlefield. Leonardo was sharp, quick, restless, but labeled a troublemaker. Sitting still felt pointless when the streets were teaching real survival. Teachers saw potential, but also chaos. Classmates saw someone different. The kid whose clothes didn't match, whose lunch was sometimes nothing. The kid from the wrong side of every line dividing Los Angeles into haves and have-nots. By 10, Leonardo had already learned a truth most kids never face. Life isn't fair. Opportunity doesn't come to those who just wait. And if you want something better, you fight for it with everything you've got. No matter how small you are, no matter how scared you feel. But in that fire of poverty and chaos, something unexpected was built. Not bitterness, but hunger. Not defeat, but straight defiance. Every rejection his mother faced. Every door slammed in their faces. Every night eating cheap food because that's all they could afford. It all became fuel for a fire that would one day burn so bright the world couldn't ignore it. Leonardo started auditioning young, not because of pushy stage parents chasing fame, but because of a mom desperate to give her son options she never had. Commercials, TV spots, anything that paid. Most doors stayed shut. Casting directors saw a scruffy kid from the wrong neighborhood. Not a future star. You're not what we're looking for. He heard it so much it stopped hurting. But his mom never quit. In watching her keep going, Leonardo learned the most important lesson Hollywood ever taught him. Rejection isn't failure. It's just the price you pay to get in. Years later, when reporters asked what drove him, he said, "I saw what my mother went through, and I promised myself I would never let her struggle like that again." This wasn't ego. This was love. Debt. A kid watching his hero break herself, trying to build him a better life. The boy who grew up dodging needles on Hollywood Boulevard was about to step into an industry just as ruthless as the streets that raised him. But unlike most, Leonardo DiCaprio already knew how to fight. He'd been fighting since day one. Armed with nothing but his mom's belief and stubborn grit, Leonardo DiCaprio jumped into auditions at 12. It wasn't glamorous. It was brutal. Rooms packed with kids who looked like him or better or richer or more connected. Hours of waiting, 5 minutes in front of casting people who barely looked up, then those words that haunted him. "Thank you. We'll call you." They never did. For 3 years, Leonardo stacked rejection like baseball cards. Cereal commercials, toy ads, tiny background parts in shows nobody remembers. His agent kept pushing, but the industry saw him as forgettable. Just another kid. One casting director even wrote, "Nothing special." But Malene never lost faith. After every rejection, she squeezed his hand and said, "Their loss. We go again tomorrow." And they did. 3 buses across Los Angeles, early mornings, late nights. Her belief became his armor. Then in 1990, finally, a small crack appeared. A recurring role on Parenthood. It didn't last long, but people noticed. Then Santa Barbara, a soap that paid the bills but didn't feed his soul. He was working, but he wasn't moving forward. "I felt stuck," he admitted later. "Like I was moving, but not going anywhere." The real break came in 1991 with Growing Pains, one of America's biggest sitcoms. As Luke Brower, a homeless teen taken in by the Seaver family, Leonardo finally got seen. Millions watched every week. Fan mail showed up. Magazines dropped his name. But success felt weird. The role was safe, clean, family-friendly. He could feel the box closing. The cute TV kid. A label that could kill serious film roles. "I was grateful," he said later, but also scared of being music stuck. While Growing Pains aired, he hustled hard, auditioning nonstop for movies. He wanted out. He wanted real roles. Music, ones that pushed him, proved he was more than a sitcom face. Rejection kept coming, even harsher. Too TV. Too young. Too risky. Then 1993 showed up, and with it, a miracle. Music, dressed up as fear. This Boy's Life, directed by Michael Caton Jones, starring Robert De Niro. Leonardo, at 18, was cast as Tobias Wolff, a teenager trapped in an abusive household, opposite one of the greatest actors in history. It should have been a dream, but honestly, it felt like a straight-up nightmare of self-doubt. Standing across from De Niro, Leonardo felt every ounce of his inexperience. "I was terrified," he confessed later. "I thought he would see through me, that everyone would realize I didn't belong." But when the cameras rolled, something lit up inside him. Leonardo did not just act. He became the pain of his own fractured childhood, the fear of his mother's struggles, the rage at a world that tried to keep them small. All of it poured into Tobias. Scene after scene, he matched De Niro moment for moment, refusing to flinch. When the film premiered, critics noticed. "A revelation," wrote the New York Times. DiCaprio holds his own against De Niro with stunning maturity, praised Variety. Suddenly, Leonardo was not just the kid from Growing Pains. He was a serious actor. But the industry moved slow, real slow. Offers did not flood in. Doors remained cautiously cracked, not flung open. He was still auditioning, still proving himself, still grinding for roles that went to actors with more credits, more connections, more luck. What kept him going was the memory of those 3 buses with his mother, the promise he made in silence every time she sacrificed for him. "I will make this mean something. I will not let her struggle be for nothing." The hungry years were not over, not even close. But Leonardo DiCaprio, the boy from East Hollywood, had tasted possibility, and now nothing could stop him from devouring every opportunity that came next. Before Leonardo DiCaprio became the prisoner of his own fame, he tasted recognition of a different kind. In 1993, The same year this boy's life announced his arrival, he delivered a performance so haunting it would redefine what Hollywood expected from a 19-year-old. What's Eating Gilbert Grape cast him as Ari, a teenager with developmental disabilities, opposite Johnny Depp. It was a role that demanded complete transformation, vulnerability without vanity, truth without technique. Leonardo disappeared into Ari so completely that when the film premiered, audiences forgot they were watching an actor. Critics were stunned. DiCaprio is phenomenal, declared Rolling Stone. He doesn't play Ari, he becomes him. And then came the validation Leonardo had chased since childhood, an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. At 19, he stood among Hollywood's elite, recognized not as a sitcom kid, but as a serious artist. He did not win. Tommy Lee Jones took the Oscar that year for The Fugitive. But the nomination was a door kicked wide open, a signal that Leonardo DiCaprio was no longer a question mark. He was a contender, yet the industry still hesitated. Serious roles came slowly. Offers were cautious. And then in 1996, director Baz Luhrmann cast him in Romeo plus Juliet, a hyperkinetic modern adaptation of Shakespeare that turned Leonardo from respected actor into something far more dangerous, a teen idol. Suddenly, his face was everywhere. Magazine covers, bedroom walls, screaming fans outside premieres, teenage girls sobbing at the sight of him. It was love, but it was also suffocating, like being trapped. I felt like a product, Leonardo admitted years later, his voice tight with frustration. Not an actor, a poster. Hollywood executives saw dollar signs. Here was a young, handsome actor who could sell tickets to audiences studios desperately wanted. And when director James Cameron began casting Titanic, a bloated $200 million gamble on a disaster epic, the pressure to cast Leonardo became undeniable. But Cameron resisted. He wanted an unknown for Jack Dawson, someone audiences could believe was a starving artist. Leonardo by then was too famous, too pretty, too teen magazine. "I don't want you," Cameron told him bluntly during their first meeting. "You're not right for this." Leonardo fought back. He read for the part. He screen tested. He refused to accept no from a director just as stubborn as he was. Finally, reluctantly, Cameron relented. "Fine," he said, "but you better prove me wrong." No one, not Cameron, not the studio, not Leonardo himself, could have predicted what came next. Titanic did not just premiere in December 1997. It exploded, it detonated. Week after week, it dominated box offices worldwide, shattering every record, becoming a cultural phenomenon that went way beyond film. And at the center of it all was Leonardo DiCaprio, 23 years old, transformed overnight into the most famous man on the planet. The numbers were insane. $2.2 billion in global box office, 11 Academy Awards, lines around theaters for months, and Leonardo's face everywhere, totally inescapable, worshipped by millions who did not care about Gilbert Grape or Romeo plus Juliet. They cared about Jack Dawson, the boy on the bow of the ship, arms spread wide, shouting, "I'm the king of the world." But for Leonardo, that iconic line became a cruel joke, because kingship, he discovered, was a prison. The fame was not gradual, it was instant and overwhelming. Paparazzi stalked him everywhere. Fans mobbed him at airports, restaurants, gas stations. Privacy became just a memory. Walking down a street without being swarmed became impossible. "I couldn't go anywhere," he later confessed. "I felt like I was being hunted." Worse than the loss of anonymity was the loss of credibility. Hollywood, which had once taken him seriously after Gilbert Grape, now saw him only as the Titanic guy. Casting directors dismissed him for serious roles. Directors assumed he was just a pretty face. Critics sneered that his Oscar nomination at 19 was a fluke, that Jack Dawson was not acting but posing. "I was being offered everything," Leonardo said in a rare, vulnerable interview, "except the roles I actually wanted. Romantic leads, teen heartthrobs, sequels, and franchises designed to cash in on his face. Everything that would have buried him deeper into the box the industry was desperate to seal him inside. And the Academy, which had once recognized him, now ignored him. Despite Titanic's 11 Oscar wins, including Best Picture, Leonardo received no nomination, not even a mention. The message was clear. Box office success and artistic respect do not coexist, not for him, not yet. The cruelest irony was that the role he fought so hard to win, The part Cameron did not want to give him had made him more famous than he ever dreamed possible and more trapped than he had ever been. I felt like I made a deal with the devil, he admitted years later, his voice barely above a whisper. I got everything I thought I wanted, and it nearly destroyed me. At 23, Leonardo DiCaprio stood at the peak of global fame, adored by millions, wealthy beyond measure, recognized in every corner of the earth, and he had never felt more invisible. Not as an actor, not as an artist, just as a face on a poster, a name that sold tickets, a symbol of something he never wanted to become. The blessing of Titanic was also its curse, and the fight to escape that curse would define the next 2 decades of his life. Desperate to escape the shadow of Jack Dawson, Leonardo DiCaprio made choices in the years following Titanic that, in hindsight, revealed a young actor thrashing against the current, sometimes swimming in the wrong direction. The Man in the Iron Mask, released in 1998, arrived first, a period piece that felt like a desperate attempt to prove range. It flopped critically and commercially. Then came The Beach in 2000, directed by Danny Boyle, a dark thriller set in Thailand that should have signaled artistic ambition. Instead, it became another cautionary tale. Critics trashed it. Audiences stayed home, and Leonardo, rather than escaping the Titanic trap, seemed to be digging it deeper. I was lost, he admitted years later. I was taking roles based on fear, not on truth. Fear that I would be forgotten if I didn't stay visible. Fear that I was not good enough for the roles I actually wanted. Each misstep made casting directors more skeptical, made the industry whisper that maybe he really was just a one-hit wonder propped up by a sinking ship and a love story. But then in 2002, salvation arrived in the form of a man who would change everything, Martin Scorsese. Gangs of New York was an epic, violent, sprawling masterpiece about 1860s Manhattan, and Scorsese cast Leonardo as Amsterdam Voluin, a young man seeking revenge in the brutal Five-Point slums. It wasn't some lovey-dovey romantic lead. It wasn't a pretty boy gig. It was raw, gritty, busted up, and bruised. Exactly what Leonardo needed. Working with Scorsese was straight-up baptism by fire. The guy demanded take after take, pushed Leonardo past technique into pure instinct, and flat-out refused anything that smelled like movie star vanity. He broke me down, Leonardo recalled. And then he rebuilt me as an actor, not a celebrity. When Gangs of New York premiered, critics clocked the shift immediately. DiCaprio sheds his teen idol skin and emerges as a formidable dramatic actor, wrote the Los Angeles Times. But the Academy? Once again, they ghosted him. No nomination. Not even a whisper. The snub stung hard, but Leo kept it moving. Later that same year, he starred in Catch Me If You Can, directed by Steven Spielberg, playing real-life con artist Frank Abagnale Jr. The performance was light, slick, playful, a total 180 from the darkness of Gangs. It proved something major. Leonardo DiCaprio had range. Real range. Still, the Oscar chatter? Dead silent. Then 2004 rolled in with The Aviator, another Scorsese collaboration. This time Leonardo became Howard Hughes, the obsessive aviator and filmmaker whose genius was matched only by his spiraling mental illness. It was a monster performance. 3 hours of mania, charm, paranoia, and heartbreak. Leo didn't just play Hughes. He vanished into him. The OCD tremors. The contamination terror. The lonely isolation of brilliance. Critics went wild. DiCaprio gives the performance of his career, declared Variety. A tour de force that commands every frame, wrote the New York Times. Surely, they said, this was the year. Ignored for Titanic. Snubbed for Gangs. This had to be it. The nomination came, Best Actor. His second Oscar nod. A full 11 years after his first. On February 27, 2005, he sat in the Kodak Theater, cameras locked on his face, waiting for his name. It wasn't called. Jamie Foxx won for Ray, a biopic, the kind of role the Academy eats up. Leo clapped, smiled for the cameras, and felt the doors slam again. But this loss hit different. This one sparked whispers that turned into full-blown roars. How did Leo not win? Headlines screamed. Fan forums blew up overnight. Early internet culture grabbed hold of the narrative. Leonardo DiCaprio, one of the greatest actors of his generation, couldn't win an Oscar. What started as disappointment hardened into something uglier. A curse. A pattern. a running joke that would stalk him for over a decade. Behind the polished smiles and press junket charm, Leo felt the weight. Not just the losses, what they meant. Validation from the one institution he'd chased since he was 19. It mattered to me, he admitted years later, voice low. More than I wanted to admit. More than it should have. Friends saw the toll. He dove into work harder than ever, picking roles with even more fire. Like if he delivered something flawless enough, it could force the Academy's hand. But he was learning something brutal. Flawless wasn't enough. Popularity could sink you. Looks could disqualify you. And no matter how deeply you transformed, some people still saw the kid on the bow of a ship, arms wide, shouting lines that wouldn't die. The aviator loss wasn't just another L. It was the start of a narrative he couldn't shake. The Oscar curse was official. The whole world watched, waiting to see if, or when, the most famous actor alive would finally hear his name. If Martin Scorsese hadn't stepped into Leonardo DiCaprio's life, he might have stayed locked in the golden cage Titanic built for him. But their partnership, starting with Gangs of New York, became more than director and actor. It became artistic salvation. In 2006, they linked up again for The Departed, a savage crime thriller set in Boston's underbelly. Leo played Billy Costigan, an undercover cop cracking under the pressure of living two lives. This was acting stripped bare. No charm, no gloss, just nerves exposed. The rooftop confrontation, the therapy scenes dripping paranoia, the final betrayal. Critics raved. DiCaprio has fully matured into one of the finest actors of his generation, praised The Hollywood Reporter. Oscar nominations dropped. The Departed scored 8, including Best Picture. Leo waited. Nothing. The Academy nominated co-star Mark Wahlberg for supporting actor. But Leo, the emotional core of the film, was invisible. Then came the gut punch. The Departed won Best Picture. The film he carried took the top prize. Scorsese, after decades of snubs, finally snagged Best Director. Leo sat there clapping while everyone else collected statues. His work? Wiped from the narrative. It hurt, someone close to him later said. Not just the snub, watching everyone around him win for a film he bled for. Still, Leo didn't fold. He doubled down. In 2010, he and Scorsese dropped Shutter Island. Leo played Teddy Daniels, a U.S. Marshal unraveling inside a psychiatric facility. It was layered, twisted, devastating, balancing sanity and delusion in every frame. The movie crushed at the box office, pulling in over $294 million worldwide. Critics praised his haunting intensity. Award season came. Silence. Not even a nod. Then 2013 hit with The Wolf of Wall Street, the one that felt like it had to break the curse. As Jordan Belfort, the coke-fueled stockbroker who scammed millions, Leo went nuclear. He snorted cocaine off a woman's body, crawled across a country club floor wrecked on Quaaludes, delivered the "sell me this pen" speech with straight predator energy. He screamed, seduced, imploded, rebuilt. 3 hours of glorious chaos. It wasn't just acting. It was possession. He became Belfort so fully you forgot you were watching a movie. It was a man burning through every limit, every boundary, every ounce of vanity. The best performance of the decade, declared Time. DiCaprio gives the role of a lifetime, wrote The Guardian. The Golden Globes crowned him Best Actor in a musical or comedy. This had to be it. The curse had to snap. The Oscar nomination came, his fourth for Best Actor. March 2nd, 2014. Dolby Theater. Older now. A little battle-scarred. Still hoping. Still believing maybe, just maybe, the Academy would finally see what the world saw. Matthew McConaughey's name was called for Dallas Buyers Club. Leo clapped, smiled, and something inside him went stone cold. For nominations, 0 wins. The memes became unavoidable. Leo will never win an Oscar, turned into internet scripture. Twitter roasted him nonstop. Photoshopped images of him reaching for a statue forever, just out of reach. Brutal. What made it sting wasn't just losing. It was what losing symbolized. Validation from peers. Recognition from the industry he'd poured his whole life into. I don't make movies for awards, he'd say in interviews. Rehearsed, polished, hollow. But the truth? It mattered. It haunted him. The Scorsese era had reshaped Leonardo into one of the greatest actors alive. 5 films together. 5 masterclasses. Proof he'd grown far beyond Jack Dawson. And still, the Academy's message felt crystal clear. greatness wasn't enough. Fame could work against you. And some actors, no matter how insanely talented, were destined to chase respect that just wouldn't come. At 40, Leonardo DiCaprio had the money, the fame, and a legacy of performances that would last for generations. But the one thing he really wanted, that simple validation of his peers holding up a golden statue and saying, "You are enough," stayed cruelly, maddeningly, impossibly out of reach. The curse was not a joke anymore. It was a scar. And the only question left was whether he would spend the rest of his career bleeding from it. In the summer of 2010, Christopher Nolan's Inception hit theaters like a straight-up cultural earthquake. A mind-bending thriller about dreams within dreams. It pulled in over $830 million worldwide and became one of the most talked-about films of the decade. At its center was Leonardo DiCaprio as Dom Cobb, a haunted thief moving through layers of the subconscious with guilt crushing him at every level. It was a performance of quiet devastation. No screaming, no theatrics, just a guy drowning in grief, playing every scene with the exhaustion of someone who no longer believed in redemption. Critics called it mesmerizing. Audiences walked out debating not just the ending, but Cobb's emotional journey. When Oscar nominations came out, Inception scored 8, including Best Picture, Cinematography, Sound, Visual Effects, all recognized. But Best Actor, nothing. Leonardo's name was nowhere. The Academy praised the spectacle but ignored the soul at its center. The snub was no longer shocking. It was expected. And that expectation, that tired certainty that Leonardo would never win, had turned into something way more public and way more brutal, a meme. By 2010, the internet had become a non-stop machine of commentary, and Leonardo DiCaprio's Oscar losses became its favorite joke. Image macros blew up on social media. Leonardo reaching for the statue forever out of reach. Leonardo at award shows photoshopped into scenes of endless disappointment. Poor Leo became shorthand for unfair rejection. By 2012, when Quentin Tarantino cast him in Django Unchained as Calvin Candy, a sadistic plantation owner, Leonardo dropped another insane transformative performance. He played evil with terrifying charisma, smashing his hand on a dinner table so hard he actually bled mid-scene and kept going. The blood becoming part of the character. It was fearless, unforgettable. The kind of supporting role that usually gets Oscar nominations. It did not. Once again, the Academy passed him by. Christoph Waltz, his co-star, won Best Supporting Actor. Leonardo went home empty-handed. His brilliance praised everywhere except the one place that mattered. And the memes got even louder. Maybe next year, Leo. The Academy hates Leonardo DiCaprio. Give this man his Oscar. What started as internet jokes turned into a real cultural narrative. News outlets wrote deep think pieces trying to figure out why the Academy kept snubbing him. Late-night hosts made it a running gag. Even casual movie fans who could not name 5 Leonardo films knew one thing. He could not win an Oscar. The real cruelty was not the jokes, but how they overshadowed his work. People stopped talking about his performances and started talking about his losses. Inception, Django, The Wolf of Wall Street. Masterpiece films reduced to footnotes in the When Will Leo Finally Win story. It became bigger than me, Leonardo admitted in a guarded moment. I felt like I was no longer in control of my own story. The world decided what my career was about, and it was not about the work anymore. It was about a statue I did not have. The pressure kept rising. Fans launched petitions. Social media campaigns demanded justice. The Academy was painted as blind, stubborn, and straight-up cruel for ignoring someone so clearly deserving. And Leonardo, who had spent his whole life trying to prove he was more than a pretty face, now found himself turned into a symbol of institutional failure. The ultimate irony was brutal. He escaped the Titanic trap, became one of the most respected actors alive, worked with the greatest directors of his generation, and delivered performances that would be studied for decades. Yet when people thought of Leonardo DiCaprio, they did not think about his art anymore. They thought about what he did not have. And that absence, that empty space where a golden statue should have been, became louder than every word he ever spoke on screen. By 2015, Leonardo DiCaprio had nothing left to prove except everything. For Oscar nominations, 0 wins. 22 years since his first nod for Gilbert Grape. A career of transformation turned into a punchline. And at 41 years old, He made a choice that would either break the curse or break him. The Revenant director Alejandro González Iñárritu pitched it as a vision, not just a film. The true story of Hugh Glass, a frontiersman left for dead in the 1820s wilderness, crawling through frozen hell to survive. It would be shot in chronological order using only natural light in some of the most remote and hostile places on Earth. No studios, no comfort, no mercy. I need you to suffer, Iñárritu told Leonardo. Really suffer. And Leonardo, carrying 2 decades of rejection, said yes. The shoot started in the Canadian Rockies in October 2015. Within weeks, it was obvious this was not filmmaking. It was survival. Temperatures dropped to 40 degrees below zero. Leonardo spent hours in frozen rivers, his body shaking so hard the crew feared hypothermia. He slept inside the carcass of a dead horse for one scene, the smell and cold soaking into his skin. He ate raw bison liver, the blood and bile making him gag between takes. It was the most difficult thing I have ever done, he later said. And the crew knew he was not exaggerating. It was straight-up endurance. Crew members quit. Production stretched from months into almost a year. The budget shot up to $135 million. Through it all, Leonardo crawled through snow, bled into mud, and pushed his body past every limit he thought he had. Iñárritu stayed relentless, take after take. Even when Leonardo's lips turned blue, even when his hands would not stop shaking. Again, the director would say, slower, deeper, more pain. There were no stunt doubles for most scenes. No warm trailers, just Leonardo, the camera, and brutal cold. There were moments I thought I would die out there, he admitted. Not dramatically, literally. My body was shutting down. But what kept him going was not just art. It was desperation, the quiet belief that if this performance, this sacrifice, did not earn the Academy's respect, nothing ever would. The Revenant was not just a movie. It was a judgment on his career, on his worth, on whether 2 decades of chasing validation meant something or nothing. When the film premiered in December 2015, the reaction was instant and massive. DiCaprio delivers a primal, visceral performance unlike anything he has done before, said Variety. This is not acting. This is raw human endurance captured on film, wrote The Hollywood Reporter. The Golden Globes gave him Best Actor. The BAFTAs followed. The momentum was real. Still, Leonardo would not believe it. He had been here before. For times. Hope, he learned, was just another trap. On February 28, 2016, he sat once again in the Dolby Theater. 5th nomination, Best Actor for The Revenant. Around him were peers, cameras, the whole world watching to see if the curse would break or if the Academy would deliver one more brutal rejection. When Julianne Moore opened the envelope and said, "And the Oscar goes to Leonardo DiCaprio," the room exploded. Standing ovation. Tears. The internet losing its mind in real time. 22 years. 5 nominations. Finally, Leonardo walked to the stage holding the statue for the first time, and his hands were shaking. Not from cold this time, but from something deeper, relief, vindication, and underneath it all, an ache he could not explain. His speech was calm, humble, focused on climate change instead of personal victory. "I do not take this for granted," he said. But the people who really knew him saw the truth in his eyes. This was not just happiness. It was exhaustion. The weight of 2 decades wanting something so badly that when it finally came, it felt almost empty. Backstage, holding the Oscar tight, he told reporters, "It's surreal." And in that one word, man, there was a confession he couldn't even fully explain. The thing he had chased forever, the validation that had eaten him alive, was finally in his hands, and it felt smaller than he imagined, heavier, weirder, almost unreal. In the weeks that followed, Leonardo didn't float. He pulled back. Friends noticed how quiet he got, the way he barely celebrated beyond the basic press stuff he had to do. "I thought I would feel different," he admitted to someone close. "I thought this would change something." But the Oscar didn't erase the years of rejection. It didn't undo the memes, the embarrassment, the nights he went home empty-handed while weaker performances won. It didn't answer the question that kept haunting him in those silent, late-night hours. Was it even worth it? All the pain, all the sacrifice, all the freezing rivers, the raw liver, crawling through snow until his body was wrecked. Was it really worth a golden statue and applause that faded in a few days? The Revenant got him the Oscar, but the price was written all over him in scars nobody could see, in the part of himself he left buried out there in the Canadian snow. He had finally proved he was enough, but the proof felt like a straight-up Pyrrhic victory. The curse was broken. But Leonardo DiCaprio, at 41, holding the statue he had spent half his life chasing, couldn't shake the feeling that he had won the battle but lost something way more valuable along the way. Long before he stood on that Oscar stage in 2016, he had already built another legacy, one that had nothing to do with awards and everything to do with survival. Not his own, but the planet's. In 1998, at just 24 years old, fresh off Titanic money and global fame, Leonardo created the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation. While most young actors were out buying mansions and sports cars, he was pouring millions into environmental conservation, climate change research, and protecting wildlife. This wasn't some PR stunt. It was personal, born from childhood memories of hiking with his father, George, through California's disappearing wilderness. "I saw the world changing," Leonardo explained in an early interview, his voice carrying an urgency that was rare for someone that young. "And I realized if people like me, with resources and a platform, don't fight for it, then who will?" Over the next 2 decades, the foundation donated more than $100 million to environmental causes, protecting endangered species, funding renewable energy, supporting indigenous communities, and fighting deforestation. The numbers were insane, the commitment undeniable. Leonardo didn't just write checks. He produced documentaries. The 11th Hour in 2007, Before the Flood in 2016, Ice on Fire in 2019, films that brought climate science to millions of people who would never open a research paper. In 2014, he spoke at the United Nations Climate Summit, standing in front of world leaders and delivering a speech that went viral. "You can make history," he said, "or be vilified by it." His passion was raw, unscripted. The same intensity he brought to The Revenant was now aimed at saving ecosystems instead of fictional characters. Environmental groups praised him. Scientists thanked him. Awards for activism stacked up next to his acting honors. The foundation's materials proudly claimed he had donated more to environmental causes than almost any celebrity in history. But then the backlash hit, and it was brutal. Critics pointed out contradictions that were impossible to ignore. Leonardo talked about cutting carbon while flying private jets to climate events. He warned about ocean pollution from the deck of a $150 million super yacht. He showed up to Coachella in helicopters, vacationed on Mediterranean yachts, and threw parties in Malibu mansions that used more electricity in a weekend than some families used all year. The New York Post ran a harsh expose calculating his carbon footprint. 6 private jet flights in 6 weeks. Forbes estimated his yearly emissions at over 418 tons of carbon dioxide, almost 20 times the average American. Environmentalists who once praised him started asking tough questions. How could he demand sacrifices from regular people while refusing to make them himself? The criticism exploded in 2016 when he accepted his Oscar and gave an emotional speech about climate change, then flew to Cannes on a private jet. Days later, social media went wild. "Hypocrite" trended for days. Memes roasted him as a climate fraud, a rich elite preaching to the masses while living a luxury lifestyle that damaged the planet. Leonardo's defense was calm, but clearly strained. "I offset my carbon footprint," he told interviewers. "I invest in green technology. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying." Still, the explanations felt weak to critics who argued that carbon offsets were basically buying forgiveness for environmental sins, or worse, just meaningless greenwashing. The uncomfortable truth sat right in the middle of his activism. Leonardo DiCaprio wanted to save the world, but he wasn't ready to give up the privileges of being Leonardo DiCaprio. Private jets meant privacy and safety from fans who still mobbed him. Yachts meant escape from paparazzi. Mansions meant security his fame demanded. "I'm caught in a system I didn't create," he admitted quietly in a rare honest moment. "But I'm also benefiting from it. I know that, and I don't have an answer that makes everyone happy, including me." The reality was complicated and honestly kind of damning. His foundation had protected millions of acres of rainforest, funded major renewable energy breakthroughs, and pushed climate science into mainstream conversations. Objectively, he had done more for the environment than 99% of the people criticizing him. But he had also burned more fossil fuel on a single vacation than most people would in their entire lives. And that contradiction, the gap between his message and his lifestyle, became impossible to ignore. He wanted to be both the savior and the superstar, and the world watching him fly private to climate summits wasn't sure he could be both. If his environmental contradictions sparked debate, his romantic life lit an even bigger cultural fire. Somewhere between Titanic and today, people noticed a pattern that was just too consistent to ignore. Leonardo DiCaprio, one of the most eligible bachelors in the world, only dated women under 25. Not sometimes. Not by coincidence. Always. The list read like a lineup of supermodels and actresses, every relationship following a predictable script. Gisele Bündchen, 18 when they started dating in 1999, relationship ended when she turned 23. Bar Raffaelli, 20 when they met, split just before her 26th birthday. Blake Lively, 23. Aaron Hetherton, 22. Tony Garn, 20. Kelly Rohrbach, 24. Nina Agdal, 24. Camila Morrone, 20 when they started dating, 25 when it ended. By 2022, the pattern was so obvious that Reddit users made a viral chart comparing Leonardo's age with his girlfriend's ages over 3 decades. His line climbed from 25 to nearly 50. Theirs stayed flat between 19 and 25. The internet called it Leo's Law. The rule, joked with dark humor, was simple. Leonardo DiCaprio does not date women over 25. The memes were nonstop. Jokes about girlfriends aging out. Edited photos of Leonardo holding a calendar, counting down to a partner's 25th birthday. But underneath the jokes was a serious question that got more uncomfortable every year. Why? Critics were blunt. It's creepy, cultural commentators wrote. A middle-aged man only dating women barely out of college suggested a disturbing power dynamic. Feminist voices pointed to the imbalance. Leonardo, with decades of fame and wealth, dating women who grew up watching his movies. Women just starting their careers. Women who idolized him before meeting him. He's not dating equals, one critic said. He's dating fans. And that's not a relationship. It's a power trip. The hashtag #MeToo movement in 2017 added more pressure. Hollywood's culture of powerful older men dating much younger women was no longer brushed off. It was analyzed, criticized, and called out. Leonardo, though never accused of wrongdoing, found himself part of that conversation. His defenders pushed back. They're adults, they argued. Consenting adults making their own choices. He's not breaking any laws. They pointed out that the women he dated were successful, independent, and had their own careers. Some called the criticism ageism, saying people were shaming a man for his preferences. But the counterargument hit hard. Preference suggests variety. Leonardo's pattern suggested something else. A refusal or inability to connect with women his own age. A need to always be the older, more powerful one. And most troubling, a clock that seemed to start ticking once a girlfriend approached her mid-20s. When his relationship with Camila Morrone ended in 2022, just months after her 25th birthday, the internet exploded again. Like clockwork, headlines said. What once looked like coincidence was now a clear pattern, and patterns this consistent demand answers. Leonardo has never really talked about it straight up. In those rare interviews, whenever people bring up his relationships, he dodges the topic like a pro. My personal life is private, he says. I don't owe anyone an explanation about who I love. And honestly, legally and ethically, he's right. Every relationship involved consenting adults. No laws broken, no abuse claims. But the silence itself started to look suspicious, because the way he kept shutting down the conversation, the constant privacy stance, didn't feel like dignity to critics. It felt more like he was ducking the heat. So people kept asking, what is he hiding? What does this pattern actually say about him that he doesn't want to face in public? Some psychologists even jumped in, saying the behavior looked like emotional arrested development. Like a guy stuck at the age he became famous. At 23, Leonardo became the most famous person on the planet, one expert said. Maybe he never really moved past that moment. Maybe he's still that Titanic kid, and dating younger women is the only way he can go back to who he was before fame took over his whole life. Others were way harsher. They called it narcissism. Older women challenge you, they said. They ask questions, they expect growth. Younger women are more likely to admire you, go with the flow, and let you stay the main character in your own story. But the truth, like always, was probably somewhere in the middle. Still, nobody cared about the complexity. The public was tired of watching powerful men just slide past accountability with shrugs and silence. Leonardo DiCaprio spent his whole career demanding respect as an artist. He got the Oscar, proved his talent, built a legendary career. But his romantic choices, whether intentional or not, became a shadow that followed him everywhere. And unlike the Oscar curse that finally ended, this pattern didn't look like it was changing anytime soon. At 50, Leonardo DiCaprio is still one of the most celebrated actors alive. But the question is still there, awkward and unanswered. What does it mean when a man refuses to grow old with anyone except himself? At 50 years old, Leonardo DiCaprio is living the dream he always chased. An Oscar winner, a cinematic icon with a filmography that feels like an acting masterclass, a net worth over $300 million, homes in Los Angeles and New York, plus a private island in Belize, partnerships with the greatest directors of his era, Scorsese, Tarantino, Nolan, Inarritu. Now he's super selective, the kind of picky only true success allows. One movie every 2 or 3 years, and only if everything is perfect. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in 2019. Don't Look Up in 2021. Killers of the Flower Moon in 2023. Every performance controlled, sharp, showing that age hasn't slowed him down, it's actually leveled him up. Critics still hype him. Fans still show up. His name alone brings attention. By every standard, Leonardo DiCaprio has won. But when the cameras are gone and the noise fades, one question still lingers. What was it all for? His Titanic-era friends are in different stages of life now. Matt Damon is married with 4 daughters. Ben Affleck is divorced but still a dad, figuring life out. Brad Pitt has a messy personal story but kids who call him father. Even George Clooney, once the forever bachelor, got married and became a father in his 50s. Leonardo has none of that. No wife. No kids. No legacy beyond the movies. "I'm married to my work," he once said. Sounds poetic at first, but it's also kind of sad when you really think about it. Friends say he's generous, kind, and deeply dedicated to his environmental work. But they also say he keeps people at a distance. He trusts almost nobody. He built emotional walls so high that even his closest circle sometimes wonders if they truly know him. One longtime friend admitted quietly he's lonely. He'd never say it, but you can see it. The yachts, the parties, the models. It's just filling a gap, and he probably doesn't even know what's missing. The absence of children hits in ways he might not even admit. No one to carry his name. No one to continue his foundation. No grandchildren to teach about the planet he spent decades trying to protect. When he's gone, the movies will remain, but the man himself will fade into history. There's something brutally ironic about winning everything professionally and having so little personally. The Oscar is on the shelf. The money is in the bank. The island sits mostly empty. And Leonardo DiCaprio, who spent half a century proving he deserved love from an industry that rejected him early on, never paused long enough to build love that didn't need proving. At 50, he has won every battle. But the war for meaning, connection, and purpose beyond the next role still feels unfinished. His story isn't tragic, but it's not a victory either. It's complicated. It's human. It's haunting. He escaped poverty. He conquered Hollywood. He finally won the Oscar after 22 years of pressure. He donated over $100 million to save a planet he won't be here to see. He built a career that will inspire generations. By society's standards, he made it. Yet one question won't go away. At what cost? The kid who grew up dodging danger on Hollywood Boulevard became a man who can't walk anywhere without chaos. The actor who wanted respect became so famous that respect felt empty once he got it. The activist warning about climate change still flies private jets. The romantic leading man never let anyone stay long enough to grow old beside him. Leonardo DiCaprio gave everything to perfection. And perfection is a savage boss. It took his privacy, his youth, his shot at a normal life, his ability to trust, and his willingness to be vulnerable with anyone who wasn't a camera. He won the Oscar, but lost the freedom of anonymity. He protected forests, but couldn't escape his own contradictions. He dated the most stunning women in the world, but never let any of them truly see the real guy. Maybe that's the real truth. One of the most watched men on Earth is still almost completely unknown. We know his roles. We know his causes. We know his patterns. But we don't know him. And maybe after decades of pressure, he prefers it that way. His legacy will last. The movies, the foundation, the image of a young man on a ship's bow, arms wide, yelling into the wind. But the real man, the one who cried in his mother's arms after auditions, who pushed himself through pain for validation, who built emotional walls so high even he can't climb them, that man is still a mystery. And maybe the saddest part is this. Leonardo DiCaprio spent his entire life trying to prove he deserved love, and somewhere along the way he forgot to let anyone actually love him. Now it's your turn. What lesson do you take from his journey? That fame isn't fulfillment. That success without real connection is just fancy emptiness. That the things we chase the hardest can leave us the most alone once we finally get them. Leonardo DiCaprio isn't a villain. He's a mirror. A reflection of what happens when talent, ambition, and hunger crash into an industry built to consume people, not care for them. His story forces us to ask tough questions about what we value, what we sacrifice, and whether the pedestals we put our heroes on are actually just beautiful prisons. Share your thoughts below. Subscribe for more hidden stories that show the real humans behind the headlines. And remember, the greatest performances aren't always on screen. Sometimes they're the ones we give every day, pretending we're okay. Because behind every legend is a person. Messy, complicated, searching for something no Oscar, no yacht, no applause can ever give. And most of the time, that person is just as lost as the rest of us.